Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Sheen, your host, and today I am joined by an incredible guest. We're joined by Suraya Turk. Suraya is the managing partner of Legal Circle, and she works with a lot of people, including entrepreneurs, startups, SMEs, big corporations, and she's an international speaker. She speaks to everybody about everything, and I can't wait for you to meet her. Hello, Suraya. Welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
How are you doing today?
Me on your... Good. Yeah, fantastic. I'm very well. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get into the questions, why don't you give us yourself a little introduction about Suraya?
Okay. Oh my goodness. Where do I start? So as you were saying, my name's Suraya Turk and I'm the managing partner at Legal Circle, which is a boutique law firm I founded about 4 years ago now. And in that role, in that capacity, I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs, SMEs and corporations, particularly in the private equity and venture capital space. So it's really interesting. It's challenging. I work with founders who are very ambitious and inspiring. So in that sense, I really love what I do and it's motivational. I mean, every day I get up and I think, what challenge am I going to address today? But in addition to that, as you were saying, I am a speaker, I'm a moderator, and I'm a mother of 2. And yeah, really, that's kind of sums me up.
I mean, the Australian accent is really hard to miss.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So what brought you to Dubai?
Actually, it was for my husband's work, not myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't plan to come to Dubai at all. Previously, I was a prosecutor. So I worked at the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions and Commonwealth. And I was really involved in my career and career progression, and that's sort of what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. And then life has its way of taking its own course and leading you. And my husband took up a job offer in the UAE to grow a company, and I moved with him. So at the outset, I wasn't too happy about it. But now I tell everybody we came for him, but we're staying for me.
Love that. So, okay, I guess the first question I want to ask you is that, even for me, I feel like I'm scared of lawyers, and I think you get that a lot. So how did you at some point decide, okay, this is something I want to become?
Yeah, so I get asked that question all the time, particularly by sort of the younger females that are embarking on a career path and they're not sure what to choose. And they always ask me, what was it that made you decide law? And to be honest, for me, I feel like it was that or it was nothing. I mean, I was just so suited to who I was. So I love public speaking. I love advocacy. I love working with people who are disempowered or disadvantaged and really being that voice for them. And the way that I knew to do it, or as I was researching careers, was that law would give you that platform. Law was the best way to be able to professionally be that voice for the disempowered or give people what it is that they want and need. And so that is sort of why I moved into prosecution also, because I love the advocacy part of it. And I knew, being a prosecutor was going to take me into the courtroom where I'm going to speak to victims, where I'm going to be talking to the police and, and really trying to be a part of people's journey and empowerment. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what moved me into the law. But I'm passionate about so many things. But it was just when it was deciding what was the career going to be, it was that for that reason.
Okay. And obviously all of my knowledge about law comes from watching a lot of shows, including How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah, or Suits is a common one. Everybody's
I actually haven't watched Suits, but I did watch How to Get Away with Murder.
Okay.
And obviously, and Legally Blonde.
Yeah, of course, can't miss that one.
Can't miss that one. But, I feel like there is such like a big emotional toll as well, right? Which comes with the job. As you said, if you're dealing with victims or people who have been wronged, they are carrying a lot of emotional baggage, which then now you are kind of like sharing the load of. How do you kind of like switch that off when you go home? Can you switch that off?
Look, it is really difficult and it's something that you definitely have to master. It's something you definitely have to practice because naturally women as well, it's hard for us to switch off, on and off. I feel like males are a lot better at it because mentally they know how to compartmentalize matters or priorities. Whereas women, everything is all really together for us, our lives, our children, our work.
It's everything at the same
everything's
time.
at the same time, right? And so it is something that takes practice, but over time, it's something that you can develop, and it's just being consciously aware that I'm not at work, I'm at home now, and I need to put whatever it was happening in the day, whatever challenges, keep them at work. And now I'm at home, now I'm wearing a different hat, and I need to step into that role. So whether it's, being a mom, being a wife, being a sister, being a daughter, whatever it is, and just trying to keep and separate in your mind, if you can, those roles. And I think with time, with practice, with development, you get better at it. You really do.
That's incredible, because now that we're talking about, being a woman, especially how different it is in different careers, of course, and especially in law. But how do you strike the balance? Because, so this is a conversation I was having with a friend as well yesterday, where she was saying how, so she's a CEO of a big brand, and she was saying how at work, she's very alpha. Her alpha comes out, and she means business. She doesn't care about a lot of things. But in her own relationships, she wants to be taken care of. She wants to be in her feminine. And she was like, striking that balance is so hard, because then where is the line? And is it just a question of your physical environment? And that's when you switch? But how do you navigate this whole boundary or like balance between being the workplace Suraya and the kind of like outside of work Suraya?
Yeah. Look, it's such a good question, because it's so difficult. And so many female lawyers that I meet who are younger than me will often ask me that. I mean, how have you been a lawyer for such a long time in a very male-dominated industry, but yet you're still feminine? There's still some femininity to you. Now, in the workplace, that's probably not always the case, because particularly law, it is a very male-dominated industry. It's a very logical path. It's very analytical. It's all about problem solving, and it uses that left side of the brain. It's not the creative, feminine side, but it serves you in that role. And so when you are in it, you need to step into that role. You need to be logical, analytical, almost use that masculine side of you. And as you say, there's a struggle of how do you then get back home and be the nurturer, be the kind mum, be the passive wife, for example, if that's what you want to be, or just be taken care of, be vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly.
Just let that guard
the princess
down.
Treatment,
exactly,
right?
Princess treatment. And I think it's really about stepping into that authentic person of who you are and being vulnerable when you need to and you have to. And just being natural. So I think for women, it's very natural for them to be nurturers and carers, and that part is loving and that part is kind. And when you step into that home, into that role, naturally, you can fall into place. And it's just, again, it's about being a little bit more conscious. So I think if you're in a very dominated or male-dominated industry and you're in that space in your work where you have to step into that masculine side, then it might take some practice for you to step in and out of those roles sometimes. And it can get blurry. It can get confusing, particularly if by your nature you're a confident, assertive, outspoken person. Then it can just be so easy to just be that person all the time. Yeah, where you're assertive, logical, forthright. That's just who you become. But I think then it's about really being conscious to say, okay, now I'm stepping into one role and I'm moving into another. And then doing it in the most natural and possible way that you can. Ultimately, look, we are who we are, and we can't change that for anyone. And I think you shouldn't have to change that for anyone. So being as authentic as what you can be, and being authentic to who you are, naturally, you know what to do. Your intuition tells you how to be. And so when you're faced in a circumstance or with particular people, for example, when you get home, you're with your child and he's crying about a hard day that he's had at school, naturally you're going to step into that nurturer, carer, motherly role, right? And so I think the thing is not to overthink it. And I think women need to trust who they are. They need to trust their intuition, and they need to trust that maybe they don't always get it right, but eventually they will.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's really nice. And while you were talking, something else just came to mind, completely unrelated to what we were talking, but related to this is, so I've been given this advice, by
Ooh,
people
let's hear it.
who are trying to help. And they were like, when you're looking for someone as a partner, like obviously to get married, they're like, maybe one big issue that you will encounter is that you have very masculine traits in the sense that you're a go-getter and people know you online for being confident and you can speak. And, this is assigned as masculine traits. That's what I mean. And obviously, I know I'm not masculine in any way. I love pink. Everything is pink. So I think we're good. But then that's why this person was telling me, she was like, maybe you need to learn how to dumb it down a little bit and don't talk about your achievements when you're talking to men. So,
Oh no. Oh no. That's a disaster. That's a recipe for disaster. Definitely don't take that advice. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But what advice do you have for women, like us who obviously you've been married for a while now, so not for you.
No, but I mean, I have to take my own advice too sometimes,
exactly.
right?
But for women, young women who are looking for a partner and who are, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there is a lot of young women who are struggling to find the right partner, especially if they're career oriented. They've done a lot for their career in their early 20s. And now they're trying to focus a little bit more on building their personal life. And there might be a bit of a delay in finding a partner. What advice do you have?
Look, I think if we start with the premise that it takes a big man and a strong man to handle a strong woman, that's a starting point. If you are a strong woman, if you are confident in your abilities, you know who you are, you know what you want out of that relationship, and you're going to be very assertive about it, not every man is going to take that. Mm-hmm. But the man who doesn't understand that, the man who doesn't accept that is not the right man for you to begin with, right?
Yes.
So I think, that's the starting point, that you need to be who you are. You need to be genuine and authentic, and then you will naturally attract the right partner for you. And a man who accepts who you are, who likes who you are, is attracted to that, will not want to reduce that. He will not want to, how do I put it? But he won't want to destroy it.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully not anyway.
Yeah.
but what I mean is
you won't need to downplay that.
Exactly.
Part.
You don't need to downplay that for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think look, the idea is that men and women are always going to have their challenges. There is no perfect man and there is no perfect woman. But it is, what are the values? What are your values? What is your partner's values? And are they aligned? So if you don't have any alignment to begin with, then of course it's not a good relationship. It never will be. And so there has to be something, or there has to be traits or qualities or characteristics that you love in that person and that person loves in you, that is going to weather the test of time. Because let's put it this way, the person I was 17 years ago is not the person I am today.
Yes.
But I'm still with my husband, and that's because we've developed together. We understood each other. The values have been the same. And so long as you can develop that together, then you're hopefully going to be okay. It's just where you try and be somebody you're not and then change so drastically in a relationship, and that person can't handle those changes too. I mean, they're just too drastic. They've just been too rapid, and they've just been too different from what it was that they married. I think then it could be hard to accept. But in saying that, yes, are there going to be men that are challenged by strong women? Absolutely. But then if you're a strong person, or don't go for those men, right?
You're not going to change either.
You're not going to change. No, that's it. And unless you want a very difficult relationship, you really want to be authentic to who you are and be very assertive and be very real about it, so that you're attracting the person that can handle it.
100%. And I mean, that's great advice. And now that you're talking about this, if we switch the narrative a little bit of not a romantic relationship, but an investor relationship, right? And I think you work with a lot of female founders as well, and you help them go through the journey of investment and pitching themselves. What do you see as the biggest challenges that female founders have, especially when they go to pitch to investors who are most of the time male?
Yeah, absolutely. So I get this with founders or female founders all the time asking, I don't think I was invested in because they found me overconfident or bossy, and I felt like that investor was threatened by me. And the reality is that, yes, maybe there are investors that are threatened by you, right? But then they're not the right investor. Just like we were saying in a relationship, if that person is threatened by you, then he's not the right partner. And you don't want to be anyone you're not. But what I think is that people like authenticity. Everybody, whether they've got their own insecurities, ego, whether they're threatened by females, who are outspoken and assertive and confident. If you are authentically that person and you are genuine in the way that you hold yourself and represent yourself, it's a likable trait. It's just attractive. And I don't think anyone really will reject that. I think what it is when they say, when female founders tell me, look, I don't think they like that I came across bossy and confident. I think it's when we try and be bossy and overconfident, or we try and assert ourselves when we're not actually feeling it inside of ourselves. And when it's not authentic to us, because people, I think even women don't like other bossy women, right? Like, I mean, who wants to be bossed around by anyone?
No one wants a bossy person
exactly.
around.
And so it's not so much that they didn't like you or didn't want to invest in you because you were bossy. Is that authentically you? Is that who you are? Is that how you're going to be when you're managing people, when you're managing staff, when you're driving the agenda of this startup, when you've got to take a startup from zero to, hero and to greatness? Do you have what it takes as a character, as a person? Are you investable? Are you likable? Because at the end of the day, when you step into that role as a female founder, and you're driving a startup to become a great and successful startup, part of your journey is going to be managing people. And so it's not just the investors, it's how are the employees? Am I going to attract the right employees with me being the person I am and the management skills that I have and the relationships that I can develop? Ultimately, your success is not going to be whether you're liked by everyone. You don't need to be liked by everybody, but is this who you are authentically? Because I think people would want to work with people who are authentic to who they are. I mean, for example, I wouldn't say I'm a little bit bossy, but, I can come across overconfident sometimes, or a person who knows what they want. Like, I do know what I want. I know how I want it to be done, and I'm not going to shy away from articulating that. But I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to be bossy about it. I will still ask for others' opinions. I still will get feedback and try and put that feedback into, for example, what I'm doing or developing or how I'm steering the ship. And so I think there's just a way to go about it. But when you are at the table with an investor, the one thing that you want to make certain is that you have the knowledge, you have the skills, and your confidence matches that knowledge and skill level. Because another thing I think, particularly when it comes to investors and when you're playing in that venture capital and private equity landscape, is, are you just all talk or are you the real deal? Do you really have what it takes to take this business from A to Z?
Yeah. To make us money, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, what does an investor want? A return on investment. They want to see you succeed. So do you have the knowledge? Do you have the skill to be able to do that? And I think it doesn't mean that you have to know everything all of the time, but you have to know what you know well, and you have to know what you don't know, and be able to be honest and transparent about what you don't know, but that you know where to go to find the resources or the help or to get that expert knowledge, or to perhaps hire that team member who is going to have the knowledge that you don't have. And so it's just being very transparent and honest about what you can do, what you can't do, and then having a plan in place to navigate that journey.
Yeah, no, for sure. And while you were talking about people like authenticity, is true, because I know people who are very, as you said, bossy or very demanding and have very high expectations, might be a little bit unlikable, but because that's who they are and they're very clear that this is who I am, people will still respect that.
And they will conform. People will conform. Yeah, because they'll just say, that's just her. She's like that. Yeah. And they just accept it and they get on with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another thing is, when you said that, you explain this so articulately, how, you know what you want and you will express it, not in a very rude way, and that might come across as bossy. I saw this interview of this actress, you know, the one who plays Ugly Betty and who was in the new Barbie movie as well.
Yes, yeah.
And someone asked her, are you bossy? She was like, no, I'm a boss. And then the guy was like, but what's the difference between bossy and being a boss? And she was like, being a woman.
Yeah.
Like women are called bossy, but
yeah.
for the same thing that you were explaining, if a man does that, it's not seen as bossy. But women do tend to be ticked off as being a little bit bossy. And that brings us back to that conversation of you saying how sometimes when you get into male-dominated world, as a woman, you feel the need to conform and you're like, I can't be too overly feminine. I won't be taken seriously. So I need to act like them. And, you know, that's also like Margaret Thatcher, who became the Iron Lady because she had to be a man. She was the first female prime minister of the UK. And I think my question to you is, given that you've been in all of these male-dominated circles, oh, that's a pun to the legal circle. Look at me. And so what advice do you have? You know, like how do you, or in your experience, how do you see your own femininity and your ability to listen, your empathy and all of that contribute to you bringing something new to the table?
Yeah. Look, if I can summarize it, I would say think like a man, but act like a woman. Do not try to, if you are in a male-dominated space, act like a man. I mean, I know a moment ago you were saying, you know, I, woman, had to be like a man. I think that's what men don't like. I think if anything, they want you to think like a man. What does that mean? Be rational, logical in your thinking. Try and be solution-orientated. That's what they want. That's what they want to see. If you come to the table, that's the attitude and mentality that you need to bring. But no, by no means act like a man. Mm-hmm. Our strength is not to be like men. Our strength is the fact that we are women. Mm-hmm. And we need to step into that power. And this comes back to being authentic. You know, authentic doesn't mean that you're a woman acting like a man, because you're never going to be able to. I mean, even if you tried, right, mm-hmm. it's not authentic to you. And that's what a man doesn't like. I think even other women don't like it. Mm-hmm. So it's think like a man, bring that rationality, bring the logic, bring the solution orientatedness, but act like a woman. Act in your power, act in your energy, in your femininity, because that is how you're going to be creative. That is how you can assert yourself in a way that's going to be respected by everybody. Mm. Whereas if you try and be like somebody you're not, that's when you're not respected. That's when you're not taken seriously. And that's why, you know, what you were saying about Ugly Betty and that actor saying, a boss, I'm a woman. That is it, you know. Yeah. And women are bosses. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they raise children. They raise nations, mm-hmm. right? Behind every nation or behind a great man is also a woman, if you think about it. I mean, that man came from or was nurtured by a mother. Exactly. Was cared for by a mother, was his skills, his outlook, the way he behaves was all influenced by a woman. Mm-hmm. And so I think for us, it's not to shy away from that power. We have a superpower, step into it. So I'd have to say it's think like a man, but but definitely act like a woman. Mm.
And, you know, now I'm sure you must mentor a lot of these younger women who are getting into law or who are interested in coming into law. And I'm sure they will all look up to you as your journey being very impressive. But what advice would you give to any young girls who are either considering going into law or who are at the very early stages of having joined law as a career?
Yeah, fantastic question. Because I think, look, whether it's law or any career, it's something that you have to be passionate about. Mm-hmm. I think before you choose any career, it's understanding who you are. What are your strengths? What abilities or what things come so natural to you that would be a natural fit in that career? So, for example, if you're somebody who is assertive, somebody who loves advocacy, somebody who's passionate about other people's rights, then law is a natural fit. But if you're creative, if you're free in your thinking, if you don't want any parameters, then choose the creative space. So I think what it is really understanding you as a person and then looking at what career is more of a natural fit for you, because the more natural it is for you, the better you're going to be in that career. But so women who are considering law, I think it's a career that is definitely a high pressure, intense, challenging career, mm-hmm. Because you're working with people, you're working with people's problems mm-hmm. every single day. And you need to be somebody who's solution focused, who can drive results for clients, because ultimately that is what they want to see. And so if you're somebody that can handle pressure or likes pressure or works well under pressure, fantastic. If you are a logical problem solver, analytical in your thinking, then great. You know, law is a career that I'd encourage you to consider. But it's not always going to be easy, and it's a challenge, like I think most high pressure jobs, you know, are these days. And so really to make sure that it is the right career path, I think it's make sure that it's a fit for who you are as a person.
Okay, wow, amazing. And what's next for you, Suraya? What are you thinking in terms of career?
Yeah, so interesting. I get asked this all the time because I'm passionate about a number of things.
Yeah, I think and we know you're not stopping here.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, really, I mean, especially as I'm sort of, you know, getting older, and I think my family responsibilities are changing as well. And, you know, there's always competing demands, but also because what I really, really love doing is public speaking. So I love the advocacy. I love influencing and inspiring. And so for me, it would be a natural transition to go into more speaking roles, public speaking, you know, being a global speaker, perhaps on various levels, and speaking about different industries, but naturally those that relate to my experience and where I can add value. So if I ever stop being a lawyer, that's probably what I would move into on a full-time basis and really try and, you know, finesse as a career.
That sounds exciting, and you're clearly very able to do that. I can listen to you for ages, and
thank you.
Law is such a boring topic, but somehow you make it interesting.
I try to, yeah. I try to, but I do get that feedback a lot from our clients as well. Like, how are you even a lawyer? I mean, you know, and law is so boring. I mean, that's what most people think, but I think when you're passionate about what you do, actually you'll turn something boring into something really fun. And it's a journey. I mean, it's particularly in the private equity and venture capital space, there's so much to learn. And I think learning is part of growing, and the more you know and the more you understand and the more you can bring that knowledge to your real life cases and scenarios and examples, it actually starts to become interesting, right? So, well, interesting for me anyway.
Interesting for everybody. But so you did mention, you know, competing demands in life. So as you said, you're a mother of two and you're a managing partner. So how do you strike the right balance?
I don't think I always do. I honestly don't think that I always get it right, and I don't think anybody does. However, as I was saying, you know, earlier, we really have to consciously, as a mum, try to step in that role when we leave work.
Right.
And we have to leave work at work. And whatever that means to you, whether it's like meditate before you get home or try and like find a space that you can just, you know, offload whatever challenges you were going, you know, or you had through the day. And then once you open that door, even if you visualize, I'm walking in now and I'm going into my home and my kids are waiting and they've been waiting all day to see me, to talk about their little journeys, you know, to talk about what little issues they've had in their day or how they've done. And just knowing that whatever you do for work or whatever you do in life, when you've got children, they are beings that depend on you to give them time and give them quality and give them attention and give them love. And so if you don't have space for that, you're really robbing them from the best mum that you can be. And so maybe you can't do that every day, but even if you master doing that on a weekend, like it's a challenge during the week, I get it, long hours, long days, you come home, you're exhausted, but perhaps then the weekend, take time to find quality moments that you can share with them and really be there for them. And I think that's just how it is. I mean, the reality is you're always going to have competing demands and it's never going to be smooth sailing and nobody ever gets it right. And there's no book with instructions. I just wish there was sometimes. I honestly wish there was just a book that says, this is how you do it. And this is how you're going to succeed. But there isn't. And you have to find your own way and you have to find your feet And I think being a mum, you just intuitively, a woman, I mean, it doesn't even have to be that you're a mum. As a woman, I think we have intuition. As I said, we have that superpower where we know what needs to be done. Maybe not how all the time, but we know what needs to be done, and eventually we find a way to do it.
Yeah. And there's always that feeling of this does not feel right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think as well, I mean, with me, when I am struggling internally with trying to find that balance, or like I'll come home and I'm exhausted, right? It's been a big day. I've been in like 5 investor meetings. I've had clients. There's been, staff issues. And you get home and it's so difficult. I mean, have you seen that? Do you know what I like? And I always remember, have you seen the comedy? There's a comedian and he talks about the woman's brain, and he says the woman's brain's like these, crazy signals that are all colliding at the one time. Whereas a man, it's like a shelf and he's got all these boxes and he pulls the box out when he needs it. And when he's done, like he compartmentalizes. And when he's done, he just puts that, box back on the shelf where it goes. And so as much as possible, if we try and do that, I know it's difficult, but if a woman tries to think, okay, I've got the family box, I've got the career box, I've got the personal space box, I've got what I'm passionate about, I've got my fitness and my health. And if we just try and compartmentalize and develop, I guess, a strategy, because life, I think, is just like running one big company. You need a plan and a strategy for it.
You're the CEO.
Exactly, the CEO of your life. And if you have a plan, I think, and as much as possible, try to implement it in the best way that you know how, but being strategic and being very thoughtful. I think that also helps.
Wow. Okay. That's so interesting. I love when you said you wish there was a book. That's what I think all the time.
Totally.
Where is the book? How do we navigate this adulthood life? But
Absolutely.
You just have to figure it out. And I guess that's just what life is, figuring it out. But now I ask my audience to send a question for, they don't know who it is for. Right? It's just about what question they would have for a guest who is a lawyer. And
nice.
The question we got was, do you have a story where being a woman, as in a female lawyer, helped you professionally?
I mean, wherever you're in a very male-dominated space, and like you could be in a meeting with all these men in a room. I mean, it's not fun, right? It's very. Can you imagine what it's like? It's very serious. Yeah. It's they're all logical. They're all solution orientated. They're all like transactional in the way that they want to do business. And then there's this woman who's bringing her feminine energy and her feminine touch and being very sociable or just being relaxed and trying to have fun in the meeting. And I think that really was an icebreaker. And it's probably happened to me not just once, but many times where I look around and I'm thinking, oh God, I'm the only one in this room. But in fact, it's so well received because it kind of just breaks that tension and that energy, and it's almost like an icebreaker being in the room with them. Yes, I'd have to say it's that.
Okay, but being in such environments can also lead to imposter syndrome, which is a word that has been thrown around a lot. And I talk a lot about it as well, about how, I feel like imposter syndrome has been fed to women to tell them that you don't belong to places.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with imposter syndrome if you experience it?
I think every high achieving woman definitely experiences the imposter syndrome. And I don't think it's something you can overcome.
You don't think so?
No. I honestly think that it's something you just have to get very comfortable with feeling. So you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That as a high achieving woman, you're always going to feel like there's more that you can know. There's more that you can do. There's more that you can be. Because we put that on ourselves, right? We always want to do more. We always want to be more. We always want to grow.
And we're critical,
and
right?
We're very critical. Yeah. And so part of that actually serves us. And so it's probably not something you want to get rid of completely, but it's something that you can't allow to consume you. So you have to have a healthy relationship with being comfortable, being uncomfortable that you don't know enough, but when you actually know. And so I think it's just a process of constantly growing, learning, and knowing that you don't have to know everything there is to know. Nobody knows everything there is to know. I mean, the person that you sit in front of and tells you they know everything about everything is the person that you're going to have least respect for.
Yes.
Right? And the person that you're not going to resonate with and probably even like. Who wants to be with a person who knows it all? And so imposter syndrome is really, to me, is really just that it's this fear of you don't know enough about the subject matter or you're not good enough. But that helps us go and research more, go and learn more, go and speak to people to find out more. And so I don't think it's something you have to completely get rid of. Look at how it serves you and change your mindset to use it to your advantage.
I like that. You put a positive spin onto the imposter syndrome. Makes you better. Yeah. No, it's true. It's correct. And I think I agree. I feel like a lot of times also it's kind of like not based on facts, right? You just feel like you don't belong just because you might be the first person to look like you in these kind of places. And if one thing that a friend of mine does is she writes a little book of wins. So then she will look at it as if she's looking at someone else's CV, and she looks like, oh, I did that. She was like, okay, I will take this person seriously.
Yeah,
so then I deserve to be taken seriously too.
Yeah.
And I think that's one way of like kind of like reminding yourself of why you belong in those places or why you are where you are today. But also kind of like a little bit of a tangent from imposter syndrome, but also sometimes like, you know, people are not very kind, whether it is on the internet, whether it is in the workplaces. Sometimes you can get haters.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you deal with any kind of like negative comments, which is not constructive in any way, or people trying to tear you down?
You've definitely got to be thick-skinned. You definitely have to be thick-skinned. And what I do personally is I visualize I have almost like a wall around me. I actually do a visualization sometimes. So you can visualize a wall or like a glass. You know those little snow globes? Sometimes I visualize I'm inside this snow globe and there's this, you know, glass surrounding me that I can allow what I want to penetrate and I can allow what bounces off me completely. And it's just, I think you've got to be comfortable with the fact that not everybody is going to like you, and they shouldn't. Why should everybody like you, right? We're different. I mean, everybody's different and everybody will connect with somebody different and relate to people that are similar and different to themselves. And you don't have to be liked all the time. But for those that don't, or those that are being very critical and judgmental, you have to find a way that criticism just bounces off you. You have to be so thick-skinned that those judgments and those comments just can't penetrate. And so I personally do it through a visualization, but I'm sure that there's so many other ways to do it. And, you know, one of the other ways is also just to, I mean, not read those comments. Do you have to? So if you've put a post and you've got 1 million people commenting and parts of them are negative, I mean, I would just ignore them completely.
Yeah.
I'd only take what serves me and leave out the rest. And it's something you have to practice and get really good at doing.
100%.
But honestly, now it's, I mean, at this point in my life, if somebody gave me criticism that I didn't think actually was constructive, I would just ignore it. Because it's as simple as that. You have to choose what information you want to penetrate. I mean, we already have limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. God knows we don't need the outside world also critiquing, right?
Yeah.
And so filter what goes into you. Filter what goes in and is going to penetrate your mindset.
Yeah. I love that. And, you know, I read this, I don't even remember where it is, and it's meant to be like a scientific fact, but, you know, eagles, when they're flying around, if a crow attacks them, what the crow does is it kind of like gets on the eagle's back and tries to push it down, right? So this is a great analogy, this is kind of like compared to haters, having haters who are trying to pull you down. And you know what the eagle does? The eagle doesn't fight it, and the eagle doesn't try to like get it off its back. What it does is it just soars up to higher altitudes, because the eagle can go much higher than the crow. And it will keep going up until the crow just cannot breathe anymore. And then the crow automatically has to let go and falls off. And I love this analogy because it's basically telling you, you just need to keep climbing, keep doing what you do because the haters can't go where you are going.
Absolutely.
Right. And they will get off your back when you reach the heights where they can't get to. I absolutely love this because it's such a good way of seeing this, right? It's like you don't need to worry about them. You don't need to try and get them off your back. Just keep doing what you're doing because they can't go where you're going.
Exactly. When you're on a path to success or to greatness, there are going to be challenges. There's going to be obstacles, and part of those are going to be other people that are going to come to challenge you, come to really just give you an opportunity to prove to yourself if you've got what it takes to get to that next level. And so even if we put a positive spin on that, right, with these haters, I mean, even if you were to fall into the trap of perhaps listening to it, fine. What does it teach you about you? What does it teach you about them? What does it teach you about the journey that you're on? Is there something that you need to grow? Is there some area that you need to develop in to take you to that next level of growth? So, I mean, I remember even my own journey. I mean, when I started out in law and the criticism that I got, but now in law and the same criticism I might get, but the response is so completely different. When I was younger, though, I'd take it on and it was much harder to accept and it was so harsh. But I pushed through. You just get to the next step. You just keep going. You just keep learning. You keep growing. And now that same criticism 10 years or 20 years later in my career means nothing because I'm past that now. And that's what it is. The higher you soar and the more you keep going, eventually, like you said, anybody who's critiquing you or the haters or, any sort of person that you rub the wrong way for God knows what reason is just going to fall off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And okay, now kind of like we're getting to the end. And one question I would love to ask you is, as part of the podcast, I always love to invite women that I personally want to learn from. It's a very selfish thing. And I call it kind of like, who would I give my flower to, which is who would I celebrate? And obviously today we're celebrating you. But if I were to ask you your question as to who would you want to give your flower to, who is a woman that you would want to celebrate? Who is it?
It would absolutely, hands down, have to be my mother.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like everywhere I am today and the mindset I have and the outlook on life and even, my aspiration to dream big and to keep going and, really build something and leave a legacy is from my mother. That's the message that I think she's given us our whole life. So I've got 2 sisters as well. And my mother's message to us has always been that, to dream big, to aspire to do great things, to impact and influence others, to be of service. My mother's whole life is, how can you be of service? How can everything that you do not be about you, but be about others? And I think, that's really what success is. It's never about just us as a person. If it's one-sided and it's selfish, it's useless, because how does that pay forward? How does that continue, right? And I think especially as a woman, because you're a mother, you're a sister, you're a wife, you're a friend, you're a confidant, you're an advisor. And I think with that selfless attitude sometimes and that aspiration to dream big is what makes the greatest impact. And I think my mother's the one that really drove that message home always, until now. I mean, I'm 40 years old and my mum calls me and says, what are you doing about your life? What are you going to do? What's the next thing?
I love it.
How are you going to influence, serve, inspire? I'm like, okay, Mum, well, I'm planning to do this now. And so,
I love it.
So if I had to give the flower to somebody, it would be to her.
Yes. Well, you need to send her this clip as well.
Absolutely.
She would love this.
Yeah, for sure.
But honestly, thank you so much for
You're
being
very
on the
welcome.
podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing. Thank you.
It's been great. And from Les Fleurs de Jojo.
Thank you.
And you
so
have a little
much.
card here.
Okay.
And because Suraya is the first guest on the podcast, I got the pleasure to write your card, because usually will be the next guest, the previous guest writes it. So you will write the message for the next guest.
one. Okay, thank you so much.
So there
thank
you go.
you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And
they're lovely.
Yeah. Any parting message?
My parting words would be to women just to be you, do you, feel it with your intuition, but think in a way that is beyond just emotion. And that makes that powerful combination and really will lead you to success. And I think to doing business in the most authentic, transparent, and a way that is with such integrity that doesn't matter who you're in front of, any man, regardless of his ego, masculinity, his testosterone, or even women, or anyone out there that wants to destroy you, you can do this. Just keep going.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Suraya.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.